I want to have this conversation as carefully as I can, though I don't have the lived experience with this in terms of what I will talk about later. So if you are somebody who's sensitive about talking about weight and body image and potentially eating disorders specifically, please scroll away, because that's what this post will be about. I do have the lived experience of having body dysmorphia to some degree. Combined with PMDD, it's a really horrible, awful existence. But at the end of the day, and mind you, I'm not putting this photo up here to shame Blake or make her feel bad or embarrass her, nothing. I wanted to put this photo up here to remind people that Blake had the first at least 20 years of her life under the existence of this being her original way she presented to the world. And the way body dysmorphia exists, at least in my experience, is that, and that I've seen expressed in my peers, is that when there's something that you're deeply insecure about, when you do something to change or move away from it, it's almost like your brain doesn't recognize the progress, doesn't understand how far the needle has moved from the starting line. And so for Blake, I believe that she has deep insecurities about herself and her image from this era, which the sadness is that even when I watch things from this time of her life before she's had any cosmetic surgeries and whatnot, she was a beautiful girl. She still was a beautiful girl even before she had any of the cosmetic surgeries. But again, the brain doesn't perceive how much the needle has moved from the starting line. And I don't know why that happens, but I've seen it happen so many times. I've felt it in myself also. And the way that I've seen it expressed the most in myself, and well, not myself, but my peers, is it's like tanning dysmorphia. People in my town, because we live in a rainforest, it's hard to get UV light here. Right now, you can even see how pale I am in comparison to Blake. And even though I'm this pale, a lot of my peers are much paler than I am. And what will often happen is they will go tanning, and they will tan obsessively, and they'll get this tan, but they'll still feel as if they're as pale as I am, or as pale as they were before they started the journey. And it's almost like no matter how much they change, no matter how much they've progressed, the brain cannot perceive that that has happened. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is because in one conversation, there was a person who had an eating disorder, and the conversation that was happening around Blake in relation to this case is that people were like, oh, she's had a history of having an eating disorder. And somebody was like, well, then that's how it makes sense that Ryan blew up the way that he did when he found out that Justin Baldoni asked her trainer about her weight. Because then that person was saying through their lived experience of having had an eating disorder, they knew the implications of how people respond when they are close to somebody who has an eating disorder. And they know the triggers and the sensitivities of a person with an eating disorder and how severe the consequences might be if any attention is drawn to a person's weight or body image. And what people were saying in the rest of this conversation is that there's been a history that Blake Lively has had an eating disorder issue, and most specifically that it's been bulimia. And so it sent me down a rabbit hole, because I was like, oh, I've never heard of this. I didn't watch Gossip Girl. I was never into all of that. So I was like, this is all new information for me. But here's the thing. What I've learned from this case is the pattern of how her PR moves in relation to real-time things that are happening, negative things, events that have happened with her and things that she said, etc. And how when something negative comes out in the press or in the rumor mill, the blind items, etc., then an article or interview will be published that spins those exact words in a positive way. And in that way, you can go back to as early as 2008 and you can start seeing how the pattern of PR moves was already happening. And essentially from this time period forward, about every 2 years, there's a revisit of this type of article where the rumor mill is met with articles that put positive spin on the exact negative words and negative statements in relation to what Blake is possibly struggling with. And you can see here that there's an entire conversation that talks about Blake Lively's weight throughout Gossip Girl. And when it came to ED and the possibility of bulimia being on the table, it reminded me of all of the conversations about Blake and her rage baking, and how Ryan has said that he's watched her rage bake in the kitchen. And when I was looking into the issues of bulimia specifically, it made me realize, like, oh, because when people feel out of control, when they have an eating disorder, one of the ways that they regain a sense of control is through the expression of that ED. And so it's made me see a lot of things in a different light, to include the articles where, again, some of the things that have been said negatively are spun differently into an article talking about how healthy she is. And there's lots of conversations out there about her insecurities and her relationship to her body image. And again, the insecurity. There's even articles that talk about how much she's been working out. And in the It Ends With Us era, when she was getting ready for the movie, I think she was doing like a 4-hour workout in her postpartum era. And this is one of the articles that kind of underscores the wording a little bit more, where they're trying to redirect attention from words that are being said in negative ways and flipping it into a positive conversation in relation to what Blake is doing in relation to her body image and fitness. So again, just every couple of years, there's articles about her and her diet and her fitness. So I think, truthfully, the sad part about this whole case is that most likely the body dysmorphia and the deep insecurities related to that type of relationship with your own body and your own image is really at the heart of a lot of this. And instead of being able to look inwardly, a lot of her blame is being attached outwardly, and the explosions are moving outward, as opposed to looking inward and doing the work that it takes to realize, like, these moments weren't threatening. These moments are most likely times when she's felt insecure, and instead of realizing that it's something, the relationship that she has with herself, she perceives it as an attack, and she perceives it as a threat. And when a person feels threatened, they don't usually look at themselves as the source of the threat. They will attach it externally to somebody else. And Justin Baldoni just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time when those feelings were happening. And I think truly in that way, with Blake having admitted so many times that she has toxic masculinity, I think that's one of the saddest things to know about yourself, and then not understand that toxic masculinity can also express itself through body dysmorphia and the expressions of those things that seem to be still tormenting Blake to some degree. Because I think the other part about unlearning toxic masculinity, patriarchy, and misogyny is to be a feminist is to have, there's a lot of conversations about radical self-love. And when you learn to love yourself, you realize that every version of yourself has always deserved love. And the sad part is that because that's not happening, because it's not something that she's aware of or able to offer herself, instead, people are becoming the villain in the external world and paying the consequences for things that she's villainized, when really it's the simple fact that she hasn't been able to slow down and realize that I'm enough, I'm okay, it's okay. And honestly, it would have been amazing if she could have expressed that through this character and shown us that this is a way to love ourselves where we're at, the way that we are, and we don't have to kill ourselves in the gym to be acceptable within the structure of patriarchy and misogyny, and that being a woman is enough.